listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour, we'll be exploring Can't Find My Way Home. Anyone that's even slightly familiar with the practice knows that shamanism works with the spirit world. But few are aware the so-called spirit world is actually varying degrees of the quantum level, which, by its very nature, is extremely multidimensional. What we perceive there is totally dependent upon which bandwidth of frequency we're focused on, and how that frequency is interpreted by the mind. At one bandwidth, we might not be aware anything is amiss. At another, we may experience a demon ready to devour us. While at yet another, the same apparition may appear as a pathetic spirit that's simply lost its way. If our perception is from a higher, less polarized level, we may become aware of a frequency that's simply out of the natural order and in need of correction. Everything is ultimately expressed as frequency. How we experience it is based upon our focus and training. Most of us see with the five senses and delineate our reality accordingly. This is much like observing a black and white photo of a blade of grass and believing you understand the entire planet. As of late, there's been much interest in ghosts. Ghosts exist in bandwidths of frequency that are above what most of us perceive as physical reality. However, all ghosts aren't dead, and all dead aren't ghosts. I first became aware of this while teaching a workshop at a retreat on what had been an old Amish farm. Many of my gifted students reported seeing a ghost of a woman on the property. When I approached the spirit and offered to take her home, she was willing enough, but when I tried to cross her over, she informed me she was not dead. I later discovered her husband had sold their farm and they moved elsewhere. She'd loved her old home so much that part of her stayed there, even though the rest of her was alive somewhere else. On the other hand, when my mother died, I helped her cross. I saw her enter the light. Yet she shows up frequently now in spirit form to help me with my work. Having crossed and dropped her robes, or old patterns and damage, my shamanic teachers would say my mother is now a reliable source of information. I can safely trust her guidance as a helping spirit, because she's neither ghost nor a haunting. But what is she really? A disembodied spirit or a metaphor? Where is she really? In heaven or in my DNA? It all depends on where I'm focused and what bandwidth I'm reading. Ultimately, as we access the higher, less polarized frequency, everything that's ever been or will be is one. It all exists in the same time and place. At times, I could be considered a ghost. As a shamanic practitioner, I'm able to become spirit and bilocate. That's to say, though I'm alive and well in my body, I can move my awareness and a goodly amount of my frequency elsewhere. Because I can bilocate with a fair amount of my frequency on deck in spirit form, I'm also able to make change in the frequencies and the location I travel to. Be it Reiki or shamanism, this is the basis behind long-distance healing. When I travel outside of my body, I have to be mindful of focus, as I'm outside of time and space. I may know where I am, but not when. As I perfected the form, there have been numerous reports of my clients being aware in the room when I do long-distance work. One even reported that her 3-year-old daughter pointed to me where I stood over my client in spirit, calling me an angel. Now that's not something I'm often accused of. We all bilocate to one degree or another. I've simply been trained to do it consciously with intent. When someone with a fair amount of natural ability thinks of me, I can perceive them in the room with me. As with all spirit work, the key in bilocation is being sure one finds their way home. Least parts of us becomes one of the ghosts we seek. Our guest this hour, Joe Weigant, has been a police officer for 20 years and a financial crimes detective for the last 4. He's practiced martial arts since 1987. His Kung Fu Tai Chi teacher taught him Reiki in 2009, and Joe started a professional practice that year. Joe has... The Reiki practice has awakened Joe's ability to be a psychic medium, and after this commercial break, we will talk to Joe about his new awakened abilities and how he works with spirit that he sees. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Joe, and together we'll discuss energy healing, quantum level, depossession, and crossing the dead. Should be hair-raising, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Joe Weigant, Reiki practitioner, paranormal investigator, and psychic medium. His website is www.reikichoice.com. Joe, thank you for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so fun to always work together, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you believe that your study of Reiki, do you say that Reiki or Reiki? Reiki.
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 As an array of sunshine and ki. Yep.
I love that. How do you believe that your study of Reiki helped you access your ability to seek and speak with spirit?
Actually, it was, I call it time in grade. It was just simply over the years of my being in that mode of being connected directly to source energy and being connected to the client that I'm working with and being tuned into that frequency, just like you said in your intro. It's about the frequencies that you're tuned into and how you interpret what those frequencies bring you in your own mind. And it's just over the course of a couple of years of always being in connection with that source energy that I started seeing things and I started interpreting things. And whenever I would ask clients afterwards, hey, did this happen or did you feel this or these kinds of things, I got validation from what I was actually being shown. And so by learning that I can tune into that, I began to practice that more and more, and now I can do that and accomplish greater things and help more people.
Got it. So when you're working long distance, like we were talking about, do you pull? It's all semantics, I know, but do you tend to go where your client is, or do you work surrogate within where you are?
Actually, I've done it both ways. I had a client that called me some time ago from Indianapolis, and I'm in Evansville, so it's about at least a 3-hour drive. And he called up. I've worked with him before when he's come down to Evansville, and he said that he was having a very serious acute illness going on, and his left leg was swelling up with fluids. He was having a localized edema, and he could not get it to go down. So I, took note of all of his symptoms and what was going on, and I said, okay, go sit down for a little while, hang up the phone, don't think about anything. I'm going to be working on you from here. So we hung up the phone, and I began working, and largely I was sending energy to that location from the source, but as I was drawing that energy to me, I was sending it from me to him as well. So it created a double whammy of energy at his location. And at one point, not only was I sending energy and imagining and creating and manipulating the energy and what it was doing there, I actually, like what you said in your intro, I bilocated to that place and began working on his leg. And whenever the hour was over with, I texted him back, and I said, okay, I'm finished from this end. You can go take a nap and drink a lot of water. And he said it was already starting to alleviate by the end of the hour. And by that evening, he had almost completely gone back to normal. By the next morning, it was done.
It's amazing what we can do at a distance if we are disciplined enough to take enough of us along, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the thing is, so many people believe that it can't happen or that that's impossible to do. But it's the way that we're made, because everything is an expression of vibration of a frequency of energy. Even the chair that you're sitting on, or even the clothes that you're wearing, even though they feel solid, when you pinch your hand, it feels solid, but it's merely a collection of tiny little bitty particles that are so small they don't weigh anything, they don't have any properties of their own, and yet they're vibrating at a frequency that we in our minds establish as solid. So it's not a stretch at all to believe that you can just tune in like a radio. You can tune in from one frequency to the next to the next. And so if you have a desire to speak with those people who have passed on and crossed over, you tune into that channel and you can speak and connect and communicate with those people. If you want to create a healing energy or you want to create a healing effect, you tune into that energy, you tune into that frequency, and allow that to flow through and create those effects.
You know, what I find interesting is that, there's a lot of people that are naturally gifted. They call themselves psychics or this or that. And I'm not saying that they aren't gifted, but they aren't trained. And so they kind of randomly tune into different frequencies and interpret them literally and take giant leaps of illogic and go into polarization and fear about the spirits they see there. Would you mind speaking to this?
Absolutely. I deal with a number of people in my Reiki practice that are suffering from anxiety, which then results in depression. They often have panic attacks. They often feel confusion. And when they try to explain some of these things to people, their friends don't believe them. They don't even know how to interpret what they're collecting. They walk into a room and they're completely bombarded by so many different energies from all the people in the room, plus the room itself, plus whatever else may be in the room, spiritually speaking. And so what this does is, because the brain, the conscious part of our mind, isn't accustomed to collating and correlating all of that information all at once, it tends to create a lot of confusion and anxiety. So then what happens, and this is even worse, when these people go to speak to a psychologist or some other medical profession about these particular incidences, they get put on medications that dull that sensory input and or affect the mind's method of translation, which often exacerbates the problem. So what I try to do whenever I'm working with clients experiencing these things is to explain to them, okay, you are now a radio that instead of tuning into one channel, you're getting news, talk, weather, sports, and country all at the same time. It's no wonder that you're going out of your mind. You have to focus on one channel. You have to focus on one radio station. You can't listen to all those things at once. And so whenever people learn to tune into one channel and tune into something that they actually really want to receive and blot out all the other things from coming in, their focus improves, their skills improve, and their levels of anxiety and depression decrease.
That's such a great point, because so many people that are diagnosed as schizophrenic are actually simply gifted that don't know how to manage their gift. And then when you put them on drugs, that makes it even harder to manage. Is that what you're seeing? Yeah.
Absolutely. And just like you said, it's not that most people don't have the skills or, quote, quote, gifts. They're just not trained, and they're brought up their whole lives to believe that that's all hocus pocus, it's all a bunch of hokum, that doesn't exist, or, even worse, you're going to hell if you think that way, or, any other number of detraining type scenarios where people say, well, I know that I'm experiencing this, but I've been told I'm not supposed to be, and so now it's scaring me. And then to make that even worse, whenever you tune into some of the paranormal shows on TV, they come at their investigations with the mindset that anything non-physical has to be demonic. So, if it's not a chair or a table or a person in the room with me, it has to be some dark demon wanting to kill me. And that's usually never the case. It's usually Aunt Tilly or Uncle Ned that are in the room trying to say hello because they got something important to say. And so, these shows oftentimes make the problems worse instead of better because they're coming at it from a very limited viewpoint.
Got it. So, Joey, how do you personally perceive spirits? Do you actually see them in the room or in your mind's eye or in the landscape of your imagination?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, because it's all the same. My imagination is my mind's eye, just like all of us. And whenever we subconsciously sense disruptions in the normal fabric of our experience of this world, how we interpret those disruptions is very important. So if I walk into a room and I notice that there's an energetic disruption in that room and I try to focus in on that energy, it will either appear to me as, a spiritual guide, an angel, or a deceased loved one, or a guide for somebody else in the room, whatever it may be, because now I'm focused in on what I picked up as a disruption. Some people who just simply haven't been trained will either A, not notice the disruption, or if they notice it, they don't know how to interpret what they're seeing because they just haven't been taught how to focus in on one particular frequency.
Got it. So they get confused and then they take it and run, yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. So would you tell us the difference between, we were talking about spirits, like of people that have crossed, but then you also mentioned helping spirits and guides. How can you tell the difference?
The way that I interpret information, and this is me personally, a lot of other people may also be doing this, but this is the way I do this. If I'm noticing something in the room, or if I'm doing a tarot reading, or I'm doing Reiki and I notice something extra has come into the room with us, I will normally just ask the questions, what is this? What is going on with this? Is this the case in this particular scenario, whatever? And if I feel a good feeling about the response, then I know that I'm on track. If I'm not feeling good about the response, or I'm not feeling as though my question came up with the answer that's making me feel good, then I go on to the next question. Actually, I was in a tarot reading class several years ago, and one of the girls in the class had a full-fledged, high-speed panic attack right there at the table with us.
Oh, my goodness.
And, yeah, she was, crying and hyperventilating and just really having a horrible emotional time right there in the class. And the fellow teaching the class, he was a friend of mine, and we're both looking back at each other, and we could both see behind her her spirit guide that was trying to connect. And subconsciously, she could tell something was there, but it frightened her to the point that she was panicking about what it was. And we're both trying to encourage her that this is your guide, this is for you. You just need to simply relax and let him speak. He's got things to say. And it took us about 20 minutes to get her, to calm down, and then get her to finally tune in and focus in on what was actually there for her to begin with. But the both of us could see this in the room, and it was standing behind her, and she's like, I know that it's there, I just don't know what to do about it. So we literally had to, just sit down with her and just walk her through this process. And once she got to that point where she could accept that this was a spirit guide, this was a helping spirit, then she began to connect with this in a way that she was able to, make leaps and bounds in her spiritual life and in her psychic life, and be able to better understand things that were going on around her. So, yeah, those things really do happen. People subconsciously pick up on things that their conscious mind can't process yet, and it creates a great deal of confusion.
Yeah, confusion and angst, and how lucky you were there. We're going to have to take a little break here, Joe, but we'll take up with this on the other side because it's pretty fascinating. Joe and I will return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic at the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We will be back, so don't you go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Joe Weigant. Joe, we were just starting to talk about how many of us are approached by spirits that are here to help us, but it just freaks us out, and how unusual it is that someone's there that can also see and talk us through it. What advice do you have for people that feel that something's kind of stalking them, but they don't know what it is?
I think there's a basic understanding of the way that the mind works is really paramount here. The subconscious mind is kind of like the part of the iceberg that's underwater, and our conscious mind is that little bitty part that we see above the water's surface. Our subconscious mind, whether we're awake or asleep, is always processing all the frequencies of the universe, and it's cataloging it, and it's correlating it, and it's discerning what it is, and when it finally sees something that's important for us to know about, it will put that information up toward the conscious mind where we can process that in a waking state and deal with that in this world. So whenever people are noticing that there's something in the room with them, or that the energy is not right in a place, or they just don't feel right in the basement, or they just feel like what you said, there's something stalking them. What that is their subconscious mind has processed this information and now has sent this information to the conscious mind to be further processed and to be acted upon. So what I try to do with people who are experiencing these kinds of things is to teach them about how the mind itself works, and then teach them how to focus in on those frequencies that the subconscious mind is alerting us to be able to better understand what it is that is near us or approaching us or around us. Actually, tonight I have a job to do that is exactly along these lines. I got a call from a friend who says that she has a friend of hers who feels that he is being possessed or invaded or taken over by something very dark and scary, and he is very frightened. She says that she has seen something change in him and is seeing something that is not right about him as far as his energy is concerned. And of course, she's tried to smudge his apartment, but that's not enough sometimes. You have to go in there and deal with the problem before you can clean the problem. And so that's what I'm going to do this evening, is to go over there and take a look at this particular fella, to talk him through some of the things that are happening, take an assessment of what may or may not be either in, around, or about him, and take appropriate action, and then, energetically clean the place before I leave.
Wow, that's a beautiful service, and the what I'm impressed with here, Joe, is the way that you're able to counsel people as to how what they're picking up is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just being interpreted in a way that's scaring them.
Absolutely, it's always the unknown that is frightening. But once you've been introduced to that unknown and you understand it, then that unknown no longer is fearful, and it's no longer something that we feel is attacking us. And sometimes it's, like we were talking about earlier, it could be a past loved one, it could be a spirit guide, it could be a number of different things. But until we know, we're going to be afraid of it. And unfortunately, in our society that we live in now, we are being taught that if it's not physical, it has to be something evil. And
right.
It's so few times where that's the case.
Exactly. The other thing that I notice an awful lot, and it's just because of the way I'm wired, I'm sure, but people that are alive, if they bring me to mind or if they're fairly gifted, when they're thinking about me or concerned for me or whatever, I can literally feel them in the room, and it's almost like I feel their face superimposed over my own, and that's how I can tell who they are. Have you had that experience, and can you speak to it?
I have not had that experience. I have done quite a bit of distance work. Matter of fact, just a few months ago, we had a friend of mine who's going to go with me on this job tonight alerted me to a friend of his in Tennessee who was, he had been on some really hard drugs for a while, and he felt that there was something in the house that was not really supposed to be there, and he really thought that this was going to be something of an ill intent. So the two of us remotely went to that place, just like you were talking about in your intro. I'm fully alive in my room. but yet my spirit and my consciousness has now gone to a different location. And, my friend came to my house, and we sat in the living room and both went into, a light trance state, and both of us bilocated to that location. And there was something in the house that didn't belong there. And we dispatched that with authority and cleaned up the place energetically and went back to my house. And what was really amazing about that entire episode was that evening, everybody in the house had said that there was definitely a very positive change in that location, and that the house did feel better, and everyone was able to live a little bit more peaceably, and they just felt much, much lighter and cleaner in the house than they ever had before.
Do you think that when people are doing heavy drugs that they open gateways for things to slide in?
Well, I equate it to this. If you are a cheetah or a lion on the Serengeti, and you're hungry and you want to eat, you're not going to go after the fastest impala or the quickest gazelle. You're going to look for the slower, the weaker, the old, the sick. And so whenever the herd travels by, you're not going to go out and try to catch the fastest one in the herd. You're going to hang back and wait until the slow ones come loping by, and those are going to be the ones that you attack. And when things come into our dimension from other areas of the universe, and they tear a hole into the fabric of our time and space, they also tend not to look for the brightest stars to try to go house themselves into. They're going to look for the ones that are already compromised in some way, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, those who already have mental or emotional discapabilities or disabilities. And so they're going to set up shop in those people because it's just easier to move into. You're not going to go and try to find the nearest preacher or Catholic priest to go set up shop in if you're something that's dark or sinister or something that's just, needing emotional energy to survive because there's just too much light in there. So I think those people who are doing drugs open themselves up to becoming victims, but I don't think that they're intentionally or even unintentionally calling things into them. I just think that they're the slowest gazelles in the pack.
That's really well put. Well, I hope I stay a young gazelle for a long time, right?
Yeah, so do I. I hope that my bulb never burns out. I don't want to be the slow gazelle.
That could be a really bad fate.
What's really tragic, however, is that some of these people who are doing drugs are experiencing the kinds of things that we're talking about on this show, that their subconscious mind is picking up on things, their conscious mind hasn't been able to interpret it, they don't understand what is happening in the room around them. Sometimes they're being contacted and they just don't know what to do with the information, and they use drugs to suppress those things so they don't have to be afraid of them anymore, which then makes them the slowest gazelle in the pack, leaving them open to attack by things that might not have the best intentions in mind. So it's a really horrible spiral, cycle of destruction.
Yeah, vicious circle, absolutely. Sure explains bad acid trips, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that I've noticed when working in spirit, and this is something that I wrestle with a bit, is when you're going from one place to the other, you can start to slipstream in time. And it's been pretty amazing to me how, time is so fluid. Can you speak to that?
I read a wonderful interpretation of the fluidity of time, that, time and matter are constructs of our collective consciousness. And the greatest way, and I don't remember the author of this book or this article that I read, but they said if you don't think time stands still for a little bit, sit on the couch and close your eyes. And keep them closed for about 30 seconds. And then open your eyes and look at the nearest clock. And if it has a minute hand moving, or if it's a digital and it's counting the seconds by, look at it. And you'll notice that minute hand or that second hand will stay still for like 3 or 4 seconds of time before it finally starts ticking again. Or if it's a digital clock, it might be on 13 seconds, but it'll stay there for what your mind perceives to be 3, 4, or 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden it'll be 14 seconds, 15 seconds. So our minds collectively have created time. Actually, I read an article just last year that quantum physicists have actually frozen light. They've held light still for a fraction of a second, and they did this by, creating two panels that they pass light through that had different properties, and light literally stopped for a fraction of a second before it traveled on. So,
good heavens,
this quantum universe that we live in is a projection of our collective consciousness, and we are the ones who dictate the rules of what happens here. Time is a fluid, relative item that we have all agreed to choose to live by.
It's just a measurement of relativity, actually, isn't it? Like where the planets are in relationship to each other. Isn't that the purest definition of time?
Absolutely. And, well, whenever you're talking about planets moving among one another, time is simply a matter of relative distance and speed.
Exactly.
If all the planets stood still, there would be no time, because their time is only measured as a relative distance and a relative motion and a direction of motion. It's the vector of the planet's motion that creates that time.
And that's why quantum physicists talk about when you get close to a black hole, time changes. You age at a different rate. Time goes different on the planet than it does outer space close to the black hole. Have you looked at that at all?
I have not, but I can agree that black holes are a function of gravity. That gravity becomes so strong because of mass being so heavy at that one location that even light cannot escape that gravitational field. But gravity is so confusing that amongst the four physical forces that we know of, no one, when Einstein created his papers in 1905, no one since then has been able to correlate gravity within the other three forces. Which is why we have the Hadron Collider, which is why we have all these experiments with the double slit experiment and quantum entanglement and all these other things, because we're trying to figure out how does gravity work, because gravity is also a construct. An atom by itself is made up of little bitty tiny little particles that really don't weigh anything, and they're being held together only by pure 100% energy. But if you put enough of them together, suddenly your chair becomes hard to pick up.
Yeah, they get mass. Mass has gravity, and there we have it.
There we are, and somehow each year my gravity seems to pull harder on me, and I think it's just a function of, gravity as more than my weight, actually.
I absolutely hear you there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, too.
Hey, that's the way. It's not because I eat too much. It's because gravity pulls harder on me than you, okay?
We're going to have to take a break, Joe. We'll get back on this one on the other side. Joe and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X Zone Broadcast Network, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to our previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Joy Weigant. Joy, thanks again for being on the show. And I'd like to move into talking about ghosts and goblins and things that go bump. Would you mind describing how you can tell if a ghost needs to be helped crossing over?
Absolutely. Well, there are four things that will possibly happen inside a house when people are experiencing some strange phenomena. The first is a residual energy. This is a recorded incident that happens inside of a structure, whether it's a person who lived there for a very, very long time, and whenever they go, another person moves into the house, and they can still see that person in the home. That may not be an intelligent, moving ghost inside the place, but it's a recorded piece of energy that is now in the building.
Yes, I call those traces, and they're really different, aren't they?
They are different because they cannot be communicated with. They're just simply a recording. Mm-hmm. And you can get these kind of things picked up in churches, funeral homes, hospitals, and things like that. There's so much of the same kind of energy in a church or a funeral home that when you walk in, you feel that energy. But whenever you're going into a home that's experiencing some things, and they say, well, I'm seeing this same old lady walking, down the hall every day, well, that's because she lived there for 70 years, and, well, her energy is now imprinted on that house.
Gotcha.
The second is what I call visitors. These are people who have, they've passed on, they've dropped their mortal coil, and they crossed into the light, and they are allowed to come back and visit this plane of existence because we're only a few frequencies away from each other, and they walk among us all the time. And sometimes those who are close to us have things that they want to say, or they want to leave behind some messages, and so they will be in the space, and their presence can be known and felt. The third kind I call trapped ones. These are the people who have laid down their mortal coil, but they never went into the light. And there's about a dozen reasons why some people don't go into the light. Sometimes it's because of anger, sometimes it's because of attachment, sometimes it's fear of judgment, sometimes it's unfinished business. But for whatever reason known to them, they decided not to go into the light and onto the next phase of existence. And so they become trapped in between worlds. They're no longer physical, but they're not where they're supposed to be. They're in between phase. They're in between two different radio stations, and they're basically static. Now, these are the kinds of things that cause problems in homes because for them, our construct of time has literally stopped for them. They'll still be in the same period clothes that they left the earth in, but now they are insanely either jealous, angry, or upset, or whatever at those who are still living here. And so whenever you have someone who moves into a house that was, built several decades ago, and they start tearing out walls or painting things, they start stirring up all this energy because now this person who is attached to the house is lashing out.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go into a home, I have to figure out which of these things is happening. And how I do that is I walk in, and I sense the energy, and each one of them has almost like a different frequency or a different radio station. And depending on if they are an intelligent energy source where they can actually communicate back, then that's when I start determining, okay, are you here because you're leaving a message, or are you here because of another purpose? I recently did a house down in Henderson where there was an old man who was a drunk, and he was an abusive person. And everybody around him felt his wrath. He was an angry, drunk, belligerent, mean cuss of an old man. And when he went, he felt so much attachment to this place that he refused to go into the light. And more people kept moving into and out of the house until finally the people who live there now called me and said, we have an issue, and I think you're the person to come fix it. Well, I had to go into trance state and try to convince this angry old man to go into the light, and it took quite a bit of psychology to convince him that that's where he needs to be, and where he is now is not where he needs to be. And so it took quite a while and quite a bit of energy to convince him that that is the natural progression of things. This is where he is supposed to go, and that is where his next duties are to perform. And he finally went into the light. And as soon as he did, the homeowner sitting next to me on the couch said, oh, my goodness, the room just changed. And I said, yeah, because this angry old guy isn't here anymore. He went into the light now. And, I'm exhausted. I want a pizza. So they said immediately afterwards that the house felt completely different. The people who were there to visit were able to visit more frequently because they had purpose. And the other spirits who were in and about the house were no longer fearful of this angry old spirit that was causing some problems. And it also allowed the people living there, the living people, to have a more enjoyable time in the space.
That's amazing. It's when you anchor anger, regardless of whether we're alive anchoring it or dead anchoring it, it drops the frequency and it pollutes everything, doesn't it? Hey,
Absolutely.
Joy, before we run out of time, would you mind telling people what services you offer and where they can find you?
I can be found anywhere in the Evansville area. I can do these things by remote. I'm in the Evansville area. The services I provide are Reiki services. I do energy healing on those people who have physical or emotional disruptions or ailments. I also do tarot card readings where we can discuss issues that are going on in your life, and we can use the pictures to help determine the challenges and the obstacles and consequences that are surrounding this particular issue. I also do spiritual work where I can come into a home or a place of business or any other site and do a site reading on the home and determine what is actually occurring into the house, and then deal with those things in an appropriate manner that creates peace for the living and for those who have crossed.
Oh, what a beautiful service. And they get a hold of you on your website, is that correct?
They can get a hold of me on the website. I am also on Facebook, and that is the easiest and fastest way to get a hold of me is by my name, Joe Weigant, on Facebook, or by the Reiki Choice on Facebook, or my other service is called EPIC, Evansville Paranormal Investigations and Consulting, and they can reach me through there. And
Fantastic.
I've always got my phone on me, and I'm always willing to listen to messages, and I'm here to help.
Fantastic, Joe. I'm glad you're here to help because Lord knows we need it right now. So how do you protect yourself when you're doing this work, Joe? Do you work with spirit helpers?
I actually, when I started doing some of these things, I was working with a lady that came in. She had been sober for several years, and she was now a sponsor in her local AA group. And I started working Reiki on her. In the first session, there was a lot of black, nasty energy around her heart. And when I started pulling some of this out of her heart, I noticed that I pulled what looked like a small ghost or a squid out, and it screamed all the way into the floor. Now, what bothered me about that incident is that I was not bothered about that incident. I watched this happen, and I'm going, I know this really happened. I know I saw this going on, and I just kept on working. It didn't bother me. So I got home later, and I consulted some people that I know, and my teacher said, well, welcome to the club. This is what you're going to be doing for a while. And so I started pulling more and more dark, nasty things out of people. And then I noticed that the bigger they were, the more time that they'd had inside of someone, they started actually fighting back. So after one of them had attacked me back and wrapped itself around my hand as I was trying to remove him, I called on the Archangel Michael.
Gotta love that guy with a sword.
Oh, that's exactly what he did. He came in with the sword and swooped in over my shoulder and commenced to immediately dispatching this thing. Well, if anyone who's ever dealt with him, the man is a taskmaster. He stands next to me and crosses his arms over his chest, and he says, you know this is your job, right? And I said, yeah, but I don't have the skills you have. And to which he replied, well, yeah, you do. And we went into a long conversation, the two of us, over the course of several of these kinds of incidents, which began to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I asked Michael one day, I said, okay, some of these things have the tendency to kind of hang on and follow you home, and I really I don't need that in my life. And Michael, he looked at me and he said, look, we can't, me, us, and my helpers, we can't sit from where we are and just clean the world of this stuff instantly. We need people-to-people contact. We need people to help other people individually. And that's where you come in. We will bring people to you, by whatever means necessary that need these kinds of services done. We will offer you the opportunities to exercise these gifts and these skills. But as long as you avail yourself to this particular task, I assure you with my solemn promise, nothing will ever harm you. And, whenever you're having a conversation with the Archangel Michael and you get a promise as strong as that, immediately I started crying, and it was an emotional time. And from that moment on, I walk into some of these scenarios with, absolute authority, courage, confidence, and I know that nothing's going to happen.
And you're covered. Time flies and we're out of it, Joe. Thank you so much for being with us. Our guest this hour is Joe Weigant, Reiki practitioner, paranormal investigator, and psychic medium. His website, www.reikichoice.com. You've been listening to The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love, as you explore the multidimensional land of spirit.
One people, one day. shine.